Washington found some offensive line depth, and it came from Old Dominion tackle Chris Adams.
You are Locked On Huskies, your daily podcast on the Washington Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back inside a special bonus edition of the Locked On Huskies podcast. I'm Roman Tomashoff. That's Ben Glassmire. He writes with me over at Huskies Wire. Thank you for making this whatever watch or listen of the day it is for you. As we always do, appreciate you making Locked On Huskies your first watch or first listen of the day as part of the Locked On Podcast Network. And Ben, we brought you in here to talk about offensive tackle Chris Adams, an Old Dominion transfer who just announced his commitment to Washington. You got a chance to watch the film, and we said, hey, we got to hop on and record real fast and get some stuff out there for everydayers. So what is it that you've seen from him so far as you've watched him?
Yeah, so we've talked a lot about how Washington's needed just bodies, just get guys into the offensive line room. They haven't even been able to get that second unit out there to work with a full offensive line all the time, which is kind of stunting the ability of a lot of guys to get reps. But I think Adams really addresses that. Like he started at both left and right tackle for Old Dominion last year. He started the year, I think it was 4 games at right tackle first, and then flipped over to the left side. I've mostly watched the right side. That's kind of what I focused on so far. But I think he's a decent athlete. You look at that guy, he's got, decent foot speed. He can get out there and move in the run game. The biggest kind of hurdle, and, we talked about this before the show, is that his size is not ideal for a power.
You're talking about his weight more so than his height, because he's 6'6", listed at 6'6", 286.
Yeah. Height is totally we're good. That's tackle size, but his weight is kind of where we're it gives you pause because he's listed at 286. I don't necessarily think he is 286 right now, so he's going to have to probably add some weight. And we've talked about, where is he going to add that weight? That's just kind of a concern going with him. But he has tackle experience at both sides. He is a cerebral player. He's got good pop in his hands. There's there's a lot to like with his game where you think that he can at least step in and be an alternate option or a starter if need be. If Jaquette and Solo aren't ready yet, it's kind of gives them more flexibility, which is really what they need at this point. They just need another body in that group that can add some flexibility and potentially be a starter. It doesn't have to be a starter if he's not ready to be that level yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something where, when we look at what this commitment means, as you said, he's big enough where I think you said you don't think he's 286. I think he's probably a little bit over that right now, where that's probably a good sign too, to see that he might have been adding some weight already in the offseason, which certainly would be a helpful thing. But when we look around this offensive line, you and I were having this conversation when we were together watching practice on Monday, that you needed to find a way to get some of these extra guys in there. And one thing that I feel we've noticed from Brennan Carroll is that he really likes getting to some of these big projectable bodies. Of course, he walked into having both Elijah Jaquette and Sione Fasolo, who have been alternating at left tackle right now. But the more we look at both of those guys, the more you and I have both said, it's not there yet. The projection is there. We think that there's a whole lot that can happen if, they add some weight and they continue to work on their technique, which is all fine. And that's all something you expect from a young offensive lineman. But this is a guy who led Old Dominion in total snaps played last year. And he got a little bit better as he did move over to the left side, which is really nice to see. So there's a lot of things that he worked on over the course of the season. But the more you look at it, the more this is just a good sign of getting bodies in the room, and then you can figure the rest out later. And Ben, we've got so much more we want to say about the depth, about everything along the offensive line, but we're going to take a quick break first. And we're going to give a shout out to our good friends over at Monopoly Go. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that, but there's just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much more to get, like unique stickers. You can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the board with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash through buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now free on the App Store or Google Play. All right, game on. So, Ben, the more we look at the offensive line, we know they're not done yet. We know that the coaching staff is probably going to go out and find a couple more bodies where, probably going to be guys like Chris Adams, whether they be a little bit projectable or they play at a lower level and just have some experience under their belts, because that's really what this needs. But one thing that I look at when I see this offensive line is I'm very encouraged by what Brennan Carroll has been able to do with the talent he's had so far. Where, UW football put out something on social media the other day, just talking about developers and how they've been able to develop so many of these young guys into Jordan Morgan was the 25th overall pick in the draft the other night. So there are certainly good signs there. And obviously that's not something you always want to rely on, but it's certainly a good sign that, some of these guys have been able to develop some of these younger players and some of these just under recruited players for the most part. And when you look at Adams, I feel like he might be able to be in that similar mold where he's got some decent tools to work with. And then along this offensive line, but between not only what Brennan Carroll's been able to do, but with Jedd Fisch's scheme itself, that there's a lot to like moving forward.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. I think Adams kind of brings a little bit of the best of both worlds. I think at least he brings both worlds together where he's got the experience. I think that's really, really important. Like we've talked about with Fasolo and Jaquette, like there's tools, like you said, but it's tough to have confidence putting them out there when they've played, no snaps, no live snaps. At least you bring in Adams where, okay, there's tools, there's tools here, and he's got the experience that you can bring in to at least be confident that he has played college football at a higher level than Jaquette and Fasolo have. So if Brennan Carroll does determine, hey, these guys are not ready, like we are not confident that they can protect Will Rogers on a snap to snap basis, at least you have Adams to kind of bring in, fill a spot somewhere, and
probably left tackle. Probably left tackle.
Yeah, for sure. With Azzopardi at right, that's kind of already locked in anyways. So if those guys aren't ready to play left tackle, then you throw Adams in there, and that's kind of, he's going to grow. Like he's still young. That's the other thing. Like we talk about like experienced guys, like they're, upperclassmen in their 6th year. I think he was a sophomore last year. So there's still a lot. Yeah, there's still a lot of room for him to grow. Like he's got a lot of time left. It's not like he's some 6-year senior coming in. He can still get a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's something where when we look at this right now, we're going to pencil him in at left tackle, like we just said. But when we look around the offensive line, I feel like they still only need 2 more starters now to kind of round out this group. Where I think Guard Memelar is going to be a starter. I think he's going to have a really solid year. Whether he slot back in at left guard like he was supposed to last season, or if they decide to move him inside the center, because that's another thing that you and I have both seen over the course of spring practices is that he's been taking some snaps, doing some things like that during 7-on-7 periods. And as he slowly works back from the injury he suffered in fall camp last year, he's another guy who is going to be a really important piece of this offensive line, where I feel if he's there on the interior, he's a veteran guy who, he hasn't played a whole ton of games at the college level, but he's somebody who we know what he looks like. We know how good he was in previous camps. And right. I feel that when we see him step on the field, he's going to be a really, really solid piece all around. Ben, with that being said, let's dive into the depth along this offensive line. Right after a message from our good friends over at Game Time, because I'm having so much fun watching the NBA playoffs, and I really wish I could attend a game. But anybody out there who lives in a city where there actually is an NBA team, unlike here in Seattle, Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip off. It's so cool because there's so many fun things on the Game Time app, like last minute deals where you can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. You can get zone deals where you save even more when you choose a section to let Game Time choose the seats. You get seat views, so you can get a panoramic view from your seat before you buy, and Game Time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. You can take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKDOWNCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. So Ben, with that being said, let's dive back into just the depth along the offensive line.
Yeah, I think it's tough right now. I think we both kind of agreed on that with, and the coaches have agreed to. It's not like something that we're just observing. They've agreed to that. Hey, we have two quarterbacks we really like, in Will Rogers and Damon Williams. And we're not able to get them all of the snaps that they need all of the time. I think that was a big part in Davis transferring away. That was kind of, he wasn't getting the reps he needed. And when you don't have groups of offensive linemen ready to go, and you're just switching, they're doing a lot of like switching out their first group, taking, flipping guys in and out, but in order to keep that five players in practice all the time, it's tough to see what you have in some of the depth players, because you're really only running with one team of offense, and then you go down to 7-on-7s. And while that's great, that's really good for young guys to get reps, you're not getting those live offensive line reps for quarterbacks, pass for reps for running backs, like all those different types of things that are really important when it comes to game time. So I think them getting just more bodies in the room, and there's guys coming in that are signing, but they can't practice yet. It's all of those type of things that are going to help boost them up. But right now, it's just kind of, they've done a really good job, I think, of rotating guys where they need to rotate guys in. So like Azzopardi's been, he's been locked in at right tackle. We haven't seen that change at all. That's really good. That's getting him the reps. That's getting all of the offensive line comfortable with him playing right tackle. But we've seen all the other positions pretty much rotate in and out where they need to. So getting more interior guys into the room will only, help a lot of guys develop, guys who shouldn't be out there yet, or aren't developed enough yet. We'll be able to kind of sit back and develop, rather than being pushed into a situation that they're not quite ready for yet.
Right. And I feel so. One guy who we haven't mentioned so far in the show is Washington's other offensive line commit, and that's Portland State center D'Angelo Titiali, where he's somebody who might be able to take that step forward, which would be so big for this offense, where, I didn't necessarily count him as a starter, because he's somebody where I'm not sure what kind of role they see for him, whether it be at center, whether it be at one of the guard spots. And that's something where I think he could come in during fall camp and really prove himself, especially if he can get up to 305 pounds. That would be so big for this offense. And if he does end up playing center, that would be perfect. And then Zach Henning is somebody who I've been really impressed with over the course of, I don't know necessarily think that center is in his future, but if he's at right guard, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world moving forward. And with Azzopardi at right tackle, you have Gard Memolar at left guard, and then maybe Chris Adams at left tackle. It's not necessarily a Joe Moore award-winning offensive line like we saw this past season, but it's certainly nothing to just say, okay, this is not going to be great, where it's solid. And as long as it's solid and it gets by, with this offense, the ball's going to be coming out quick.
Yeah.
That we know that. We know that that's going to be one of the focal points of this offense, is just getting the ball out quick anyway, no matter, even if it was the same offensive line from last season. So there's still a lot to be desired, and it still feels like there's going to be more coming in the transfer portal along the offensive line. So this is a really nice building block in Chris Adams, but there's still more work to be done. And Ben, with that said, thank you so much for being here. Thank you all the viewers for tuning into this special bonus edition. We really do appreciate your support. We're going to have so much more stuff like this coming your way whenever there's some big news. So make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. We're there. We're everywhere, updating this channel with new content every single day. So please make sure to click that like button, click that little bell so you never miss when we post a special bonus edition video like this. And please make sure to leave a comment down below if you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that. And if you're audio only, please leave us a 5-star review, as it all really does help the show out a lot. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will talk to you on Thursday.